I'm Philip Simon. I'm director of the graduate program in interactive communications at Quinnipiac University. My department in school is one of the co-sponsors of this event, which is our second year, starting our second year. I'm not going to say much, so thank you for coming. And Dan Weingrod, a digital strategy consultant.
Right.
He'll figure it. He'll tell you what he does.
I'm still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
He changed what last year he wasn't. He's now freelancing. Last year he was working for Conan and Company, so he'll explain that. But anyway, so we're talking about social media and search today. I tend to drift away from searching for social media because it's so much, and it's hard to figure out what to look for and listen to. So hopefully these folks will have some strategies about that as it relates to your own business and so forth. So I'll just let Dan take it from here, and thank you for coming. He'll talk about what's coming up, and anytime you want to go up and get some refreshments, please do. We're pretty informal here. And Dan, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming and getting up so early. I'm sure we'll get a few more people joining us as we go. We've got a really interesting group here today. You know, one of the things that I heard from people last year as we sort of polled individuals about what was going on was that while people liked sort of the direction that we had about sort of trends and where things are going and things like that, the other thing we heard from people was we wanted some really actionable kind of things. Well, okay, what can I do with this kind of stuff? And so we're hoping to have a little mix of the two here because we've got Rich Bradley, who's a managing supervisor?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, managing search supervisor at Global Strategies International, who finally arrived. There's his crew right there, his cheerleading team. If they make loud noises when he speaks, you'll know who's doing that. You know, Global Strategies International is a division of Ogilvy, and you know what they do a lot of work on is in the whole area of enterprise search, something that we all don't hear about, but how like big companies like IBM deal with the ideas of search on a broad kind of level. We've got Greg Cox from ThinkAroundCorners.biz. And Greg is a principal at that business, really involved in search, you know, really kind of across the board. And Greg's going to talk a lot about analytics and deploying analytics around search. And then Kathy Hokinson, who's the VP of Sales and Marketing at SiteSeeker, which is located both in Hartford, Syracuse, and one other place I noticed.
We have a lot of satellites.
They're all over the place. They're everywhere you turn. And Kathy's going to talk about how SiteSeeker is approaching social and search. As Phil said, this is our second year running, and we are starting to plan out the season kind of going forward. We certainly welcome your suggestions in some of the directions that we'd like to go. You know, and the point is that, you know, one of the things that we've seen is that social really draws in a tremendous amount of ideas and thoughts around digital media pretty much everywhere, both from website development to corporate structure, to a variety of different areas. So we've got some ideas planned for this year. Our next session likely will be in early November, okay, followed by one in January. But the big idea that we have is planning for the spring to do a sort of a half-day kind of or full-day more education type of session, and we're going to start looking for people who can join us and be part of this. So again, if you're interested in this, if you have some ideas about this, you know, we'd certainly love to get your input about this, about anything else that's going on. I'll be sending around a little poll to get your feedback on this. Some questions that we have are certainly around, you know, whether we want payment. We like this thing being free and things like that, but we're recognizing that we have some you know, potential for you know, for driving at least revenue, potentially getting additional guests if on a paid situation. But anyway, that will be as part of the overall discussion and things like that. You know, be happy to hear from you in both the survey and in emails directly to our to SMBCT. basically by just responding to the invite that you gave us. And you're all in the email database now if you're new here, so you will get all the updates of what's going on up ahead. So we wanted to kind of kick off with an idea and a discussion of something that I've been thinking about a lot, and some of us have been thinking about a lot. I sort of came into this business to some degree through the world of search. And it was very funny because working on a project with a client just the other day, she turned to me and she said, well, search is a mature media. And I thought, what? That's like somebody once said to me, when you look at traditional banner ads, it's like, well, wait a minute, traditional banner ads? So, but the fact of the matter is that search, in one respect, I mean, it's pretty much such a total part of our lives on such a regular basis that it's very hard not to think of it as something that really has taken hold, taken root in a very strong and solid way. But if you start seeing what's been going on in the search world on a broad level lately, and you start seeing Google's reactions to, for example, what's been going on with the fact that Facebook is getting more visitors to their site than Google in fact does, you begin to see that there is sort of a little bit of a challenge to search from social in terms of both just simply traffic, and then ultimately the bigger question, the question of really what these different types of approaches do and how they influence each other. And I thought I would just start the conversation going with a little example of something that I saw recently. And let's see. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a little stupid Google trick that you can all try at home. Okay, go on to Google, and if you've got a Gmail account, log in as yourself and do a search. So on the left side here, on the right-hand side here, that's a search under my login for one of my favorite things, Instagram. And I don't know if you can see, but over the third item down, Instagram has basically shared this information of their Twitter account on there for me. That's information that I've gotten from there. Then I went in and logged in under my wife's account, okay? And none of that information is there. Has anyone ever seen this? Has anyone seen now the fact that, okay. So the fact of the matter is that what's going on is that at some level or another, social is beginning to influence search. Certainly, well, you're seeing that with Google now. Another example that I would bring in is, over here, I've got someone who's a search for the faster than the speed of light neutrinos. Okay, I'm a total geek, but really, really interesting stuff. So I've got somebody who +1 something, and then under a separate account, somewhat different result. This is only going to grow, in fact, as Google Plus gains its traction as +1. How many people here are on Google Plus, by the way? Yeah, so, of those 25 million that grew very, very quickly, how many are using it more than Twitter? Yeah, okay. That's a whole kind of, but really what's starting to happen is all of these are starting to influence one another. It brings up the whole idea of, does search change from an algorithmic type of situation to a semantic type of situation, or both? And how is this kind of blended? I'm sure there are plans and ideas and people who know exactly how they're doing it, but the question is how it's going to play out, what's going to happen. And so this raises big questions for people involved in this traditional mature medium called search. So here's a tweet I happened to see the other day, a retweet of Danny Sullivan from the, I think, SMX, okay? The 4 C's of SEO success: code, content, connections or links, and conversations. Well, that's new. Haven't heard that before. All of a sudden, a completely different part of the mix in this story. Or then something like this, which I got from a friend through Google Plus, of course, is SCO, the new SEO. And this is one of these wonderful Edelman PR insane charts that they do about Social media, that if you could figure this out, you would, win $1 million. But really what they're talking about is content optimization around search, okay? Content optimization in social media, being able to build the possibility of, helping your search grow even more and work more strongly. So that's some of the questions that we wanted to kind of talk about with folks and get a sense of, and certainly hear your questions about where we think some of these things are going. So we're going to have 3 separate presentations, and we're going to start with Kathy on this. And
good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy from SiteSeeker. As Dan mentioned, just a quick thing about us: we're a search and social marketing firm. We started in 2003 in New Hartford, New York, which is just on the west side of beautiful downtown Utica. We started predominantly in the manufacturing and B2B arena. The 2 founders of the company were Thomas Register reps. Anybody here remember Thomas Register? Oh, yes, thank you. I was a Thomas rep for 14 years, so that was our community and audience. Selling advertising space was in manufacturing and B2B, which was the launch pad for SiteSeeker. We employ 22 people between Central New York, Connecticut, Virginia, and North Carolina. Virtual work is a beautiful thing.
When you wander closer to the mic.
Wander closer to the mic.
Which is on the table.
Which is on, okay.
Thank you.
People can't hear me. I've never heard that before. My children inform me that people
for the video.
Okay. People in Rhode Island hear me yelling, so. So that's a little bit about who we are. We are growing quite a bit in our work with consumer-based audiences as well. Here's some of our clients that we're currently working with doing search and social strategies. So for us on SEO, we always use the term SEO, right? That was the whole thing. Tags, links, content, engagement, that was the conversation. And so what we've seen evolve is that we started building out content like on YouTube. We had a client, Gear Motions, and if you Google gear grinding, they'll show up 4 or 5 times in the top 10 positions on Google nationally for their YouTube channel, their white papers and SlideShare, their pay-per-click, and then organic search for their website. So it was all about how do you get onto the search engine result page, the SERP, not only just through the website, but all content possible. And we started seeing all these little things showing up in the search engine result page 2 or 3 years ago that wasn't just the website. I did a presentation for Constep on social media for manufacturing, and I wanted to update it, so I Googled social media for manufacturing, and on the #1 result, I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting, who's this? And I clicked on it, it was my SlideShare presentation from a year ago. So it was just kind of funny, but that SlideShare content indexes. Yes?
I didn't understand what you were saying with the gear grinding.
So we have a client, Gear Motions, and so we built out a YouTube channel for them, and we optimized the videos, tagged the videos, and we embed it into the website. So when you Google gear grinding, which is their predominant service, you'll find them in the top 5 in Google for their website. You'll find a web page. You'll find a link for their YouTube videos as a separate result. They're in the pay-per-click in the top. So typically, they'll have 3 to 5 positions above the fold in Google when you Google their top service.
Oh, I thought you were talking about something technical that I hadn't heard.
Oh, yeah. That's the newest SEO term. I'll tell you about it later. So for us, social and search has really been coming together for quite a while. And so now you're really seeing the conversation blend. It really is social search. I mean, we don't even say to our clients anymore that we're doing SEO. It's internet marketing, right? It encompasses everything that will help them engage in conversation and drive traffic to their website and do conversions. Sorry, I put this together late last night. I'm not sure what transitions and what advances. So the first thing is you really need to know your clients, really understand what their goals and objectives are. The days of, gee, I need a new website are done. You have to have very long conversations with your clients about why, what their goals are, and what they're doing. You need to help them develop their brand persona. One of the great things about social media is these logos now, these flat printed logos that appeared in magazines and even on the web screen, on your computer monitor, now can have persona. They have personality, they have depth, right? They can actually engage now. So help them to develop their brand persona. Engage in conversations. That's the biggest struggle. I think anybody who works in consulting and social, they feel it's a broadcast medium and they're not engaging in conversation, and that's getting them to engage. Build content once and repurpose it everywhere. I mean, that's the other beautiful thing, is we do a weekly webinar called Jolt and Bolt. It's just kind of what's happening in search and social, 15 minutes in and out. We do the webinar, we upload it to YouTube and tag it, we take the PowerPoint and upload it to SlideShare, and we blog it. We started this webinar in June. Between all those platforms of that content, we've had over 2,000 views of our content in 2 months. Very powerful tool. So that's a great thing about social. Build it once, repurpose it everywhere, and we're actually now stripping all the audio out and launching a podcast channel. So, So here are some examples of social search in action. So Seneca Data out of Syracuse, New York wanted to launch an online site to compete with Tiger Direct through refurbished computer equipment. It was called cheetahdeals.com. As of November 1 last year, there was no such thing as cheetahdeals.com. Cheetah Deals didn't exist. So they approached us, they said, we want to launch Cheetah Deals. We partnered with another web development company who did their site and their e-commerce platform, and we do all of their social, all their SEO, we manage their e-commerce and their pay-per-click. We launched Cheetah Deals on the back of social. We blog, we Facebook, we tweet. We took that Cheetah Deals and we started putting it everywhere on the social platforms, engaging in conversation, writing great blogs, and just driving tons of content out there. At the same time, working really hard on position for refurbished laptop, refurbished computers, and a very aggressive pay-per-click campaign. So in the beginning, their conversions were coming from pay-per-click. That's where they were starting to sell computers. After about 4 months of a highly aggressive social campaign, what we started to see was that demand by brand converted much higher than demand by refurbished laptop. So what we did is, by creating a powerful brand for Cheetah Deals behind social, it impacted their conversions on search. So we saw this dramatic shift where nobody knew what the heck a Cheetah Deals was in November. And through social, made everybody very aware of Cheetah Deals. And by March, Cheetah Deals was converting higher than refurbished laptops. So this is actually kind of interesting. This actually just came up. I got a lead off our website the other day for a company out of Virginia. And so I called them, and we were going through the discovery process. And I said, oh, by the way, I got to ask you, how'd you find us? He says, I don't know. I did something like role in internet manufacturing. I don't know, something like that. And I came to this PowerPoint about internet marketing for manufacturing on SlideShare, and we read all your PowerPoints. They started quoting back my presentation to me, which is really scary. So I went into SlideShare, because we have the advanced SlideShare, and dug into the analytics, found the link. So here's what happened. This is exactly what they Googled, role of internet manufacturing, internet and manufacturing. That's my PowerPoint presentation right there on my SlideShare channel. So there it is. They read the whole thing, and that's what we got. It's a very significant opportunity for us. And it'll close in 2 weeks. So that's the impact of social and search. If you're just thinking about position on the SERP for your website through keywords and tags and links, blah, 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 you're missing the boat. The social conversation not only gains you position on the SERP, but develops depth and brand and conversation and persona. You're more engaging when you do these things. The other thing I would throw in there as well is we are really getting to a process now of what we'll call developing buyer personas. We've become so much more savvy as internet users. You have to dig into the brains of the customers now. We can't just put up websites and force them through how we want them to do business with us. Those days are done. And so you really need to spend some time digging into what their clients are like, what they're willing to do, and how they want to buy from you when you do the architecture of the website. So user testing and really understanding their client makes a ton of sense. Any questions?
When you do the social blogging and the Facebook and stuff like that with your clients, where do you get the content?
We do a lot of research. We usually interview team members. We have 3 content writers on staff. Styles come into play. Sometimes one content writer doesn't really jive with the client, so we'll switch people around. But it's just a research interviewing process.
Excellent, thanks. And we're going to At the close of the presentation, we're going to bring everyone back for a loud and raucous panel discussion.
Yeah, so many contentious issues.
Exactly. And if they're not, we'll make them contentious. So, okay.
While we're switching that, I should, my program, I got an output from California last night. It said, I found your program on a Google AdSense page, trying to promoting people coming to take the program.
Right.
They want to know, could I forward a job description to any alumni who are looking for speaking folks who are looking for a job doing social stuff. So they found me, so it's crazy, looking for a job before.
One thing that people search for. So, Rich?
Thanks. So I'm Rich Bradley. I work for Global Strategies. Got some representation in the back here. They'll probably be my biggest hecklers. And I'm going to talk about social signals in search, taking it from a slightly different angle here. Global Strategies is an Ogilvy company. So I work out of Ogilvy's Manhattan office, focused primarily on SEO and digital strategy for some larger kind of enterprise clients, like IBM is my primary right now. So you'll see a little bit of overlap probably with some of the philosophy of the other presentations. But I think, there's kind of a different angle here. So Dan should appreciate this. We're talking about the old search landscape, your traditional kind of classic search landscape. And let me see if I can get rid of that box there. So what did it used to mean to own search shelf space? And kind of classically, before you started seeing so much universal search, so much integration of social results into the SERP, it used to be that you just needed to figure out what keywords you needed to own kind of search real estate for. And you could own that top result if you optimized hard enough, engaged in paid search to displace any competition that you might have. And effectively that way you could own as much kind of the search engine real estate as you possibly could. And so this is the new search landscape now, and it looks a little bit different and it's a little bit more complex. So obviously personalized social signals have become a key part of ranking algorithms, and different users again are going to see some different kinds of results. So, sometimes in an example like we see here with Adobe, which is one of our clients, you'll see more shelf space taken up by various social results than by a brand's own domain. So in this case, we do see the domain, and I can see that my colleague Julio has +1'd it, which might be one reason that it shows up above, say, the Wikipedia page for, the building material Adobe. You also see their Twitter account rank quite well. And in this case, you see a couple of blog posts that actually aren't that recent by Matt Cutts. And again, you can see right there, if you do kind of a hover over his name, you were connected to Matt Cutts on Google. So right there, I'm seeing that you might not be if you're not following him. But the fact that I am following him means that that search, that key search real estate, the shelf space that everybody is, kind of struggling for. In this instance, Matt Cutts owns a pretty decent portion of it for me. So when we talk about the socialized search landscape now, it's really more of a two-way street than the one-way street it used to be. You have users who are able to control, to a degree, and not all of them will be actively controlling this, but they can control what they want to find through their social connections and through recommendations. So top results, again, can include content that friends or even followed brands have liked or +1'd, depending on the search engine you're talking about. And companies at the same time can still organize their content by user intent. So it's still important to understand the keywords that audiences are using at different stages of the purchase funnel, to align content by intent, and now more importantly than ever, to share that content across multiple social platforms. So here's an example. Let's take a really broad keyword like cars. So I type cars into Google, and this is a keyword where, it's very vague what my search, could mean, what my intent is, what it is that I'm looking to find when I type that in. And Google is, calculating thousands of different, signals in its algorithm, trying to take them into consideration, figure out what I'm looking for. And again, kind of in your more kind of classic model, it used to be trying to find the best average signals, compile them, and figure out what's the best result for most people. Versus, what we're looking at here, which is now we have social signals to provide specific information to help Google discern my intent specifically. And so as a result of this, we have Ford, which is another Ogilvy client. Now they might not show up on your search for cars, which might be dominated by the movie, by cars.com, by Wikipedia. Ford shows up for me, and there's an annotation that shows I'm getting this result because I follow the Ford account on Google+. So I haven't specifically told the search engine, I'm interested in Ford. All I've said is, I'm interested in looking at cars, but the fact that I've previously indicated to Google that I have enough of an interest in Ford to follow them, means that they're going to show that result, alongside all these others in the most prominent search real estate. And so Ford, I want to note, it's one of the accounts that Google is working with to test brand pages on Google+. Brand pages aren't out for everybody yet. There is a sense, though, that that is imminent. And the success that we're kind of seeing with what's going on with Ford has been very interesting so far. So also, and this is something that anybody can do regardless of whether you can have a test brand page, the importance of ranking advocates and influencers. So Ford's global social media lead, Scott Monty, he's also active personally on Google+. He has 12,781 followers, last I checked. And they will be able to see the items he shares on Google+, as well as the pages that he +1s all over the web. And in addition to that, his public posts on Google+ could rank, even for users who don't follow him, if they're relevant enough by traditional kind of algorithmic methods. And so again, it's going to be really important across the board to be active on different platforms. It's not all about Google+. Brand social media strategy is going to mean creating content that has a chance to rank depending on all these different ways that users might filter their information. So going back to the Ford example, they have a brand Twitter page with 82,598 followers. The Ford Mustang official page, 1.7 million followers. All of these can show up in different forms on someone's results page. Not everybody's going to see the same results page. Not everybody's going to see Ford results when they Google cars, but you're giving the best chance to reach the most people by having optimized content that could meet the needs of different people who may be following you by different means. So at Ogilvy and GSI, one thing we do is create what we call consumer intent models to help clients optimize their content and to improve the signals, therefore, that they're sending to Google. And what this is kind of about in a nutshell is by understanding the different stages of the customer journey as searches relate to the purchase funnel, brands can optimize pages and different assets to limit competition between internal content and to dominate potentially search engine results pages by having all their different assets ranking at the same time. And then with internal advocates, influencers and brand channels promoting your product, Google will be able to organize the results differently depending on the user, but more so for all users for which this is going to be relevant, including your prospects and customers. So search for your brand. You don't have to be an enterprise for the same principles to apply. Do you dominate the results pages when you search? Did Google find your YouTube channel? Did Google find your Facebook page? Do you have Google Plus results ranking? Do you see recommendations from people that you know and trust when it comes to your brand? And if the answer is no to any of these questions, there's definitely an opportunity to improve the signal that you're sending. And that's it. Thank you. Sure.
Question, is this kind of what you're talking about? Does it work when people aren't searching for brands?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think searching cars is an example of that.
What about if like IBM's your client, somebody's searching for IT services?
Yeah, I mean, it's the competitiveness of the keyword is obviously going to be a major factor. It's one thing if somebody Googles IBM or an IBM brand. It's a different thing if somebody is just looking for servers and then all of a sudden you're competing with the Oracles and HPs of the world. But again, especially when you're talking about kind of this high-level, enterprise client, most everybody is on equal footing, more or less at this point when it comes to basic SEO fundamentals. Everybody's gotten there. HP is where Oracle is where IBM is. And so you add this social element, you cross all these different channels, and you do have more of a chance to outrank that competition through different channels.
Great, thanks, Rich. Greg's going to come up now, and he's going to take a slightly different tack, get a little more traditional, and using actually the whiteboard to talk a little bit about
now,
search and analytics.
Traditional PowerPoint.
Exactly.
I want to thank you as well, so I'll just use that slide. My name is Gregory, and I'm going to take a slightly different approach. I'm going to talk about measurement. Here's your call to memory. That's my logo. Finish the sentence for me. If all you have is a hammer, then the world looks like a nail. And the larger toolbox that you create, the better carpenter that you can be. And carpenters build very, very solid, level foundations. Baselines, if you will. Quite literally baselines. And if you create that baseline, then you can compare channels for ROI. And if you can compare channels for ROI, then you know where to put your money with confidence. And that is exactly what good marketing is all about. Let me use an example. If you invest $70, and that gets you 70 visitors, and all 100% of those visitors convert into 70 goals reached, and each goal is $5 per, then you've made $350, and that is a 5-to-1 ROI. Everybody with me? If you invest in another channel, let's say this is channel 1, this is channel 2, if you invest $2,000, but you only get 40 visitors, and of those visitors only 4 goals convert, but each goal gives you, say, $5,000, then that is a 20-to-1 ROI. Remember, we're talking about measurement here. Which channel are you going to invest your money in? You better believe it. And so, what this all comes down to is baseline. Can you confidently look at these numbers and say, along this chain of equation, that when you end up here, that's real? And if you can, then you know where to put your money, and you can market with confidence. And this brings joy. So, if we look at it from that perspective, let me describe to you what you have to do. You want an application or an action plan? Here it is. First, you have to centralize your data, because you can't baseline unless you centralize your data. So you have to have a place to collect all of the various channels, whether social media or search engine optimization. Thank you very much. It was like you guys supported what I was going to do here. But you got all these channels, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, organic, any type of social media there, any type of organic there. Let's see, referral traffic through affiliates. Doesn't really matter. But the central location, of course, which is your website, then drives towards goals. There are 4 problems to this process. 1, you have to identify the channels. So that's problem 1. Problem 2, you have to validate. Problem 2, whoops, that's an R, Greg. Problem 2, you have to validate your website, probably through Google Analytics. Extraordinarily powerful tool, it's free. You have to segment, which means basically refine the data of these channels that come through into your website. You have to tune that signal to make sure that you've got a clarity of each channel, so you've got a baseline. So segment. And then you have to goal set. So the problem 1 is, can you identify the incoming channels by knowing Google Analytics? The second problem is, can you validate Google Analytics, which virtually nobody does? The third problem is, can you segment or tune the signal or basically refine the channels so you know you got clear baseline data? And fourth, can you point them towards a goal that makes sense or that you can calculate for money? $5 or $5,000. Can you accurately state that? So those are the 4 problems. But if you can, then you can calculate ROI. And if you can calculate ROI across channels, this channel, that channel, the other channel, whatever channel it is, social media, SEO, or organic, I should say, then you know exactly where to put your money. So ignoring Google Analytics and just focusing on social is the wrong step. Focusing on Google Analytics, or pardon me, focusing on only Google Analytics and ignoring social, the reverse, that's a problem too. Just remember that if you can't baseline, then you can't calculate across the channels your ROIs. And if you can't do that, you're always going to be in the dark. So where's your company going to be in 5 years? In 50 years? Hell, in 500 years? To think of it that way, to know for certain that you've got baseline data and you can calculate ROI with confidence, it becomes a fun process, and that's good marketing. And in essence, that's it. So, let me talk to you about the future. There are 2 things that you should focus on. You should focus on Google Analytics, because Google Analytics will in the future expand their code. Right? And that code expansion means it gives you granularity. Granularity of what? Take a wild guess. Granularity of baseline. You have a stronger granularity of being able to look at that baseline. The second thing that you should focus on is APIs. And APIs basically make more channels to Google Analytics, or shall I say your website, right? So the second focus is APIs.
Quick definition of
Yes.
APIs.
Application Programming Interface, right? Am I right? Thank God.
It does. It's because it's a tough concept, and if you're not sort of a geek, you don't always get
My
it.
apologies for, I hope I didn't get too much geek on you.
No, it's important, but it's very
Application
important.
Programming Interfaces. Don't create an account. Sign in, log in with your Facebook account. It's an API. So APIs normalize data between 2 disparate groups of data, right? Got an account over here, just use it to log in here, right? So that's an API. So APIs more rapidly create channels, which you can then baseline. So you have a wider baseline. So in a sense, you could say that it is the widening of the baseline. So, action steps. Let's see what I got here. Focus on baseline. ROI is important to understand. You got to get in the habit of it, and you really should tune it as hard as you can. All right? But if you want to focus some energy on Google Analytics, you want to focus on segmentation, you want to focus on validation, you want to focus on identification, and you want to focus on creating great goals. So these are goals. Here's what you have to research to do better Google Analytics. There's your goals. This requires, let's see, advanced segments, right? Because advanced segments allow you to tune that signal. In a sense, this identification process is reports. And we could also say over here in advanced segments, stuff like, I'll just put CV, it doesn't mean curriculum vitae, it means custom variables. And perhaps the most important thing is validate. So there you go. That's where you have to focus your energy as far as Google Analytics. Yes?
When you say validate, are you just talking about the fact that you know that the code's on a particular page, and that Google says that page is validated? What you're talking about?
I can give you a couple of leads in terms of validation. It's probably a little too difficult to describe right now, but it'd probably tie us up. But the bottom line is that sometimes Google Analytics is not set up correctly on a website. If you have multiple websites and you need to relate a visitor's behavior from one website to another, or from a website to a subdomain of that website, so subdomain.website.com, so that requires code, and that requires different code for different situations. Multiple websites, subdomains, third-party e-commerce systems, third-party search systems that give you faceted search for your product line, e-commerce. So you have to make sure that that data is valid. Okay. Otherwise, you can't baseline. So the reports give you the clarity to identify the channels. The validation ensures that you've got a baseline of channels. The advanced segmentation and custom variables give you the ability to fine-tune those channels. And once you point them towards a goal, you can calculate that ROI across channels. Yes?
How do you factor in online influence from offline channels or goals? So take the Ford as an example.
Creative vanity, yes, yeah, creative vanity.
Just take Ford as an example. If I go through and I did a search and I found Ford's interesting, I go to their Facebook page, that's great, I want to buy a Focus. But then I go to the local dealership here in Hamden. How do I factor in that there was some sort of influence from either the web or those other social signals to an offline purchase?
There you go. So there are some very big hurdles to baselining that data. You got a very good point. Let me give you an example that I can answer. Let's say you have a business card. You're going to put on that business card a special vanity URL that takes them to a specific place that you can track and record. In very similar ways, direct mail campaigns Vold would say, if you like to lose weight now, call 101. If you like to fit back into those old college clothes, call 102. If you want to look better than your friends, call 103. And from that way, you can segment that information. So in very similar ways, you can put 101, 102, 103, or whatever word people will remember on a business card or a campaign. Yes?
I can actually answer that. When I just bought the Jeep at the dealer, they actually had a card I filled out where I actually got them from, and Facebook was on there, their Twitter account. More and more big brands and companies are putting those kind of checklists into the purchase when you actually get to the purchase of where you actually found them, just for that reason, because you can't track that stuff.
So. Thank you. Yes?
That sort of becomes a channel or baseline that you have to feed back into that system there.
What's that?
You have to feed that back into that system.
That's true.
Yeah, then they aggregate it and put it into the data.
Yes?
Could you presumably use a QR code in some way to focus that?
Absolutely, provided you have everybody has a large enough population as a QR reader. Down the road.
I was just going to say, Google Analytics will probably have this at some point as well, but Omniture, one of their big competitors, I guess it's now Adobe something or other, actually has part of their application allows you to feed in retail data to correlate it with Medion. So it's not, so you have to do a lot of the sort of figuring yourself, but you can at least feed this data in there compared against what your online stuff is doing.
There are tools out there. Some are very expensive, some are less so. Google Analytics is what I was focusing on because we all have access to it because it's free. It's down to whether or not you can learn that tool, whether or not you invest that time. But yes, Omniture is absolutely a wonderful tool.
Great.
One more?
Oh, yeah.
Getting back to this gentleman's question about moving cars, I run into a lot of clients who are running campaigns, and the clients are out there doing organic searches. It has nothing to do with the campaign, but they come into the landing page that we're promoting. All right, and we can track that they came in from an outlying source.
Right.
And then we subdivide those out. And what we're finding in some cases where we're actually, organic searches are outperforming our advertising campaigns in very niche markets.
Well, everybody has a psychological boost of, I found this, so I must be right. So, and paid advertising is always looked at, they bought that. So, you know, not to say it's bad, and you can do a lot of split A/B testing with
Then you've got to go back and you've got to report that back.
Right.
Your baseline is saying, okay, how are these organic searches getting in here? What's driving them into that landing page? And that creates a whole new science unto itself to try and figure it out.
Multi-channel funnels coming to the general populace, to a Google Analytics account near you.
Okay, so now we'll come to the further discussion. There'll be plenty of room for questions coming up, but we wanted to get the whole group up here. And, you know, really, I think we'll put up the Quinnipiac College logo, so it'll all look, there we go, that's. And get a sense of, you know, get all of your questions. And first of all, before we go on, thank you very much. All of these presentations, I think, great. I think some very common themes throughout, but also some really very, very interesting differences in terms of where things are going. So, you know, I wrote down a couple things as you know as I was listening. You know, and you know, one of the first questions I had, which is something that's been bugging me, and I don't know how folks out here think about this, but the whole idea of +1 and what's going on with +1. First of all, do any of you guys feel that +1 is effective? I mean, why would anyone do this? A, and B, you kind of wonder if that's something that couldn't just be gamed at some kind of level, just people clicking multiple +1s, you know, throughout in that. Any thoughts on that?
I would say anytime you introduce some kind of new tactic, you're almost relying on kind of the black hats to figure out where the loopholes are. So, you know, how useful is it going to be for the next year or two? I'm sure there are going to be people, you know, gaming it. From my experience, at least, I think, you know, I'm seeing more kind of brands and clients trying to use +1 just to get those results up for the people who are following them. Than I have friends in my personal life who seem to be recommending things by +1. So is that sustainable? I don't know. You know, how much is Google going to, you know, be taking that signal into consideration in its ranking algorithm in the long term? I think is still unclear, and I think, you know, I suspect that will have to be, you know, diminished over time unless, you know, there is something that happens. Maybe it's the increasing popularity of Google Plus now that it's open to everybody over the last week or so. Yeah, I mean, the direction it's headed right now, I can't see, you know, +1ing being sustainable in quite that, you know, broad popular kind of way.
When Google Plus came out, they actually did that beta launch of just the +1 button on the SERP, which I thought was ridiculous. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So you have a +1 button on the SERP, so I had to click to the page and go back and +1 it. I was like, this is really silly. But then, of course, they launched the Google Plus, and then it went, You know, I actually was at a presentation with Jordan Ross from Google out of the New York office, and I was asking about, because Google had just announced in early August something about that how many times a +1 got hit on a SERP would actually kind of add to credibility. And I said, well, that kind of harkens back to the day of when pay-per-click got launched, and, you know, competitors were paying people to click away somebody's budget, and then they went, ooh. Right. And he said they're already in consideration of that. I think initially right now where I see it all kind of playing out is like with Bing and Facebook, that integration. I mean, does anybody here ever go to Bing? I only went to test the Facebook integration into Bing. And I have to say, it's actually kind of cool. I did a search in Bing for SEO for manufacturing. And I looked at the page, and somebody that I follow on Facebook who's in my industry was at the bottom of the page, and I did the search, and I went boom, and then I went, oh, because I didn't look at the top. I looked at the bottom because all these little faces I was familiar with. And so in a social arena, I see a lot of impact of Google+, but I think the +1 button's impact will be on the web pages, like the Facebook share button. I think those are where they're going to count the signals from. But
what was the original question?
Well, basically, the +1 button, and it's
is it dangerous, or
well,
can it be cheated on?
Gamed, yeah.
Can it be
everything
gamed?
Can be gamed.
I don't know. I mean, they probably have certain levels of algorithms that focus back onto certain IPs or accounts, and those accounts can be in some way validated because they're active and they show actual, tie-ins in social circles. So there may very well be already integrated into the algorithm the knockout of that kind of data to grant a certain normalization of the +1. That is their true investment, is to recreate the human experience through search. So they're probably working on that, yeah, if they haven't already.
And one of my questions was about the word that Kathy just mentioned, which in this whole discussion, no one's mentioned the 800-pound gorilla, Facebook. And all of a sudden we have, and as I'm sure you know, Facebook had this sort of massive launch and reorg just yesterday, which will of course be followed by screams of agony from everyone using Facebook, and then probably by wonderful levels of adoption by everyone who's using Facebook. So just on a broader level, Kathy, you got into it, and I think in a good way. Maybe starting with you, Greg, this time. Where do you see Facebook's role going forward in the world of search? I mean, there's been discussions about, are they planning to do a search engine? They have a team of people squirreled away in a cave just doing that. Where do you see them going? Where do you see their role in the world of search?
Well, I think if search is reliant upon really good demographics and segmentation, then certainly they have a platform by which to move into search. I think in many ways, though, the brand would be destroyed by that. Maybe, I don't know, it's anybody's guess. However, it has such a gravitas in terms of user base that I think it could stay where it is. And I think one of the dangers of large companies is trying to become everything to all people.
I agree. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I personally, like on a personal level, I don't do a ton of Facebook personally. I'm more of a mommy stalker. But I don't like the recent changes. I think it's very arrogant that they think they know what's more important news to me. Like, I have to actually go look at my husband's page to see what he chatted about today with his garden blogging friends. And like, I don't like what they've forced me to do because they think they know my circles better and they think they understand what's more important to me. So I think there's an arrogance about Facebook that's going to derail them a little bit. And I think, what Gregory said is right. You can't be everything to everybody. And I think in his quest to dominate the world, he may become nothing to no one. I don't know. I think it's too much of a push where he's going. And I find it interesting because Facebook's search function now stinks. You can't even find business pages in Facebook using the exact spelling of the business page. So, they're going to have to make some significant changes to how they search stuff.
LinkedIn's is much better.
Yeah.
It's faceted search.
Search
They did.
yesterday, and my little test with Google Plus just launched its own internal search, and it's pretty powerful from what I've seen.
I would hope so, considering they're the beast.
No, I think the big advantage that Facebook still potentially has is when you're talking about social signals, the amount of information that people have poured into Facebook, just from a demographic, from a personal likes and dislikes point of view, Google has miles to go to catch up with that. Now, is Facebook, using that information the best way that they can? Are they, efficiently monetizing it? I think, a lot of the redesign is, we learn more and more about that of the profiles and the timeline and so forth. We're going to see that a lot of it is going to be built around different ways that Facebook is trying to insert sponsorships in ways that people will be more likely to engage, because frankly I think there's been a little bit of disappointment that people don't engage as much on kind of the personalized demographic advertising that appears on Facebook. But they still do have the advantage that Google has, quite a bit to catch up on, of having all that information. They've got 800 million users versus Google Plus's 30 million, whatever it is right now.
So, do you ever? I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll throw it out. do you ever see the day when it will really be a world of essentially semantic search, a world of that's simply based on what I as an individual have chosen to like, what I've chosen to subscribe to, what I've sort of declared and raised my hand that I like, as opposed to, I guess what I'd call it, simply algorithmic search, where basically, one entity, quite frankly, is basically saying, well, this is what you're really interested in based on the words that you've thought. Can they be blended? Are they two separate things? Will one win over the other?
I mean, from my perspective, I think Google has successfully blended the two in kind of their current incarnation pretty well. I do think that's where we are headed, if by nothing else than, the sheer quantity of traffic, to Facebook by itself. I think, like I say, Facebook has all the demographic information, all the signals they could possibly need to probably, develop a search engine that is entirely kind of tailored to the individual. I don't think, that's where they've put their energy, where they've put their resources, but I think it's almost an inevitability that things will continue to move that way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we're kind of there. Google's done a good job of blending the conversation a little bit, but I push back a little bit on it, But I tend to like to dig. I log out of Google a lot just to kind of do my anonymous conversation and dig it in, but I don't know. I think we're in for some very interesting shifts over the next 7 months with what Mark Zuckerberg put up last night and what he's looking at doing, and I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. Our marketing communications coordinator, so she's going to write a blog that says, I heart Google and I'm dumber for it. We just sort of, I mean, instant search, right? You don't even have to finish typing what you were thinking. And, oh, yeah, that's what I meant. And,
But it's so much fun playing the instant search game.
I know it is. So it's kind of, people scream about the Facebook, the demographic, and the privacy issues. So will Google gain a little ground there because they do have less knowledge? You know what I mean? It's just a very interesting conversation. I think we're in some very significant shifts.
Right.
Yeah, rainbowing and rainbow are two totally different searches, and it would be very. I don't know. Can I wax philosophical for a second?
Please.
I think that it deconstructs the scientific method, and people should be introduced to things that they don't necessarily like or understand or are interested in or engaged in. So in many ways, I mean, as search agencies, our job is to convince the buyer that this is the best product or service to go with, and to that end, you can be very black hat or white hat about it. But I think by creating search that is so personalized that it actually blocks you off from the rest of the world, really, in my opinion, goes the opposite direction of what full search and full global search and full globalization of communication is all about.
Excellent.
So I would advise Google not to do that too much, if I may be so bold.
That actually addresses the question I was going to ask the panel, your perspective on this. I have a 75-year-old father who loves the internet, and he's getting really frustrated because he's an ex-professor. He still likes to do research. And he said to me the other night, he goes, you know what, this is becoming so restrictive. I don't want them to know where I am. I don't want them to know what I've asked before. And all I can say was, well, stop liking shit, Dad. but what is your perspective? I mean, because that really was a eureka to me. It's like, yeah, I'm in New York City. I don't want to know about what's happening right here. I'm doing a general search. And so I told him, stop saying, yes, we can use your location. Stop liking things. Clear your cookies. Get a new computer. I mean, what else do you need? I don't know what else to do.
I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I think this is hugely generational. The current generation that is growing up on Facebook doesn't have anywhere near the same kind of boundaries around privacy that older generations do. And whether that's good or bad, I think they've been programmed to kind of feel like this stuff is okay. And I don't see the influence that's going to deprogram that anytime soon.
See, it's not even a privacy issue with it's a knowledge thing.
Sure.
I want to know what I already looked at.
Right. I just don't know if there's a big enough kind of counterbalance, especially in the generation that's coming up, to, you know, affect it. Yeah.
All about me, all about me. Look, Google knows about me.
Exactly.
Actually, now that's cultivated on the internet, and there's a famous quote by Alan Arthur, called the filter bubble, basically talking about, all these kind of personalization, kind of linking the people, talk to the different kind of the topic and different kind of area of views. Actually, he did a very famous study compares people's Democratic search result on Google and Republican person search result on Google. It's a very different result. But I think for the commercial point of view, that's another debate basically, whether that's because of the personalization or actually it's because of bad personalization. Because if you design a good personalization engine, maybe you should balance the force, customize people's interests, but also think about balance the global view. But I think my earlier question, but actually I want to come back to the discussion about Facebook and Google. I think we focus a lot on the search, but for the human nature, there are two ways of people to gather new knowledge, new information. Search is only one. The other one is browsing and learning in everyday life. I think Facebook's value is really on the browsing and learning everyday life. You don't necessarily see on Facebook, but oh, your friend buy a new product car, or my other friends, like this year. By this kind of similar everyday interaction, you get awareness of the brand. I think that's why the future actually maybe the commercial or basic use of the social media really on this kind of word marketing or kind of the everyday kind of impact. That's my opinion.
I kind of feel that, the ideal perhaps would be having the user be able to decide, in this search, I want to see what my friends think. I'm looking, I want to find out about cars. In this search, I want broad brush, no influence from my circle, because I want, kind of generic, organic information and sources. Whether anybody's going to be happy with that besides the user, I'm not sure.
Or allowing the technology to get to the point where you can actually GUI build, ferret tools that search appropriately for your needs in the situation.
Right, and I mean, the overriding question is do you even have control over search at some kind of level? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of going back to that. It's an interesting point. I think Google, if anything, they want to figure out semantically through what you're typing, what you're intending by your search, So it's almost like their ideal is to bypass as many steps as possible between delivering the result that you want and you're entering it in. Whether that's completing the phrase for you, whether that's showing a full preview of what the website looks like in your results as soon as you mouse over it, which is the next thing coming. I don't see in at least kind of Google's forward-thinking mindset that there's ever going to be a step back where they say we want people to have the option to kind of select X or Y. They want to be able to figure out by what you're typing in and what signals you've sent them in the past and what they can pick up from, whether it's Facebook, whether they ever come to another agreement on Twitter, Google+. If that can dictate when you type in cars, are you looking for the broad searches on cars that is likely going to yield cars.com and Wikipedia on cars and a bunch of images of cars, or are you looking for specific brands? The whole goal is, I think, to be able to figure that out in advance.
Or become a better searcher. Type Google cheat sheet and go find out all the things that you can do. It's just Boolean logic. It'll take you 15 minutes and it will absolutely change the way you approach things. And you're right about the newer generation. Mark's probably going to kill me for this, so sorry, Mark. One day I said, "Do you even know the scientific method?" And he goes, "No." Okay, let me sit you down. Because acquiring knowledge is what, using search is all about. And acquiring that knowledge has to be done in an appropriate way. And there's dangers to everyone talking to you. So And I'm not sure that, you know, we have any control over anything overall. So, but I will say that, you know, search does give you that power. Even personalized search gives you that power in ways that we've never had before. And so,
just revisiting this concept of, you know, Google taking a step back. Yeah, I don't think they'll will, but they have, you know, between offering an incognito window in Chrome and offering, you know, that tool where you can actually extract your own, remove your data from their system, essentially see what data of yours they have. You know, I could see them offering that as an option. You know, kind of what you were saying, view it as a global, you know, sort of, you know, no personalization search.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying the incognito window where you can, like, you know, keep your cookies and everything. So I mean, it's still based on IP and everything. There's still, of course, going to be, you know, many factors, you know, customizing your search. But even more than controlling it, I think what, you know, really goes into, you know, some of these points of knowing what you're seeing is just knowing what variables are being taken into account, knowing what assumptions are being made to serve the results.
Yeah, I think Google would be happy to give users an option and set it up in such a way that the vast majority of users are not going to take it.
Absolutely.
Since websites are usually a one direct conversation, it's the company to the people, what do you feel about the growing rumors now that the reason that Google Plus has not come out with business pages yet is because they're reworking their algorithms to take the social search of what businesses will do on the business pages and devaluate actually what's going on in SEO and how your website is now ranked. There's a big rumor that your website is no longer going to be the baseline or the key to everything and what's going to happen in your social world with your Facebook, your Twitter, YouTube, because it's based on user engagement and reviews and people having engagement with the companies. Whereas websites, anybody can get a website now for $400, put it up there. So there's a big rumor right now that there's going to be a huge devaluation and that SEO is really going to be turned upside down in a couple of months.
I mean, I think we're already going there. I would be shocked if there's a big switch that's flipped, you know, once brand pages become active. But I do think, you know, like I kind of alluded to before, if you're looking at, if you're comparing, you know, IBM with HP and Oracle, and they're trying to take all the factors, all the signals into consideration, who to rank for, you know, this broad search or that broad search. From an SEO perspective, you know, classic SEO perspective, everybody's been optimizing, everybody's had link strategies. You know, they're always going to be looking for what's the next thing we can use to deliver good results to people that can distinguish these sites from each other. And, you know, if they've determined social is the way to do that, and the best way for them to collect those signals will be from the brand pages and, you know, associated content on Google+. You know, I can see that happening, but I do think it'll be gradual.
Yeah, because it's kind of scary to think that right now your website's ranked in the top 5 or 6% all these years of doing proper keywords, everything else, and in 6 or 7 months from now, if you're not on Google Plus with a proper business page and you don't have it linked to Facebook, you don't have outbound links everywhere, then all of a sudden your website's going to go from here, get buried down here, and your competition's going to be up here because they've been doing the social networks the right way.
Yeah, I mean, SEO fundamentals aren't going to go away overnight. It's still going to be an important foundation to have. If you don't have that and you do the social stuff, that's not going to kick you ahead of the competition overnight, I don't think. But you know, the fundamentals by themselves just aren't enough in the new kind of social landscape.
I mean, the website fundamentally, I think, is still core to the whole conversation. I mean, you have to get them. We have several clients with Facebook that have e-commerce on the Facebook pages, you know, the Wildfire app and all different things, and none of it really converts. It's an engagement, conversation, personality thing. I tell people it's kind of where you build some personality around your brand. The website is still really core, and I could see some pushback if they can't get to the information they want. You know, when I'm in Facebook, if I need to buy a car, I'm not digging on Ford's page, sorry. Yeah. But I'm going to Edmunds and I'm doing my research. I want to know what has better MPG, who's going to last me. You know, I buy a car, I drive it 10 years. What car am I going to buy? It's going to go 10, you know what I mean? I might see friends that like pages. Well, good for them. I like a Mercedes, but I don't drive one.
I like a Mercedes too.
Yeah.
Again, it's going generational, because when I look at I have teenage daughters and their friends and everything else. When they search now, they don't go to websites as much. When they go search in Google, they actually type Facebook and the brand they're looking for, because MPGs, all that stuff, but when Justice Clothing Manufacturer comes out with a new pair of jeans, they can go to a website and Justice is telling them this is a great pair of jeans, but when they go to the Facebook page, they're seeing all the conversations happening about those jeans so they can make an informed decision more so than a website's telling them. So I am seeing a generational shift of websites to where I can go to the company's website, they're telling me their story, but I can go to the social networks and I can see what other people are telling me about the story. So that's the point I'm looking at is, you know, I'm starting to see that websites might be devaluated that way because it's a one-way, it's not a conversation, it's a one-way commercial.
I think that's a very specific demographic. You know, I mean, my teenage daughter, you ask her, I think, I don't know. And I pray to God every day as she brings home A's on her report card that I don't know, will involve to, gee, I'm curious.
Yeah.
You know, so I think some of it is the product, the age, the demographics.
Right.
Some of it is generational, but I can't see the teenagers forever Facebooking, you know, their new jobs or their Mercedes or their house purchase, or I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, and I also think that no, websites aren't going to go away because you can have an infinite repository of information where you want it to be, and you also have to realize that the centralization of that is, well, part of my discussion, but also that social points, I mean, be everywhere your customers are is pretty much the creed of, you know, what we do. So using social sites as touch points is absolutely key, you know, but getting all that to centralize the data so you can compare it is also key. And I don't necessarily think search in any way is going away because some people don't just have access to that data on Facebook. I'm sure there's something missing on Facebook.
And the core to all of this is content, right? That was what Danny Sullivan said. It's all, so there's only so much content you can get Facebook and Google Plus and other places. So the core to all the decisions we make and all the search we do is around content has become more and more important. We're generating more and more content now. And so content is at core. You can only going to get so much content on a Facebook page, you know.
Right. And notice Google's two-pronged attack right now is that they're trying to create a social competitor and they're trying to socialize their search. So social is obviously playing a huge role because trust has always been the role since the dawn of time. And social circles can give you that trust bump to engage further. So.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I suppose Facebook's strategy could be that eventually they want to be a web hosting service. They'll let you design the page to look the way you want, make sure the Facebook logo is up there. Maybe they'll have e-commerce components, you can buy things there. Eventually, maybe you can actually store static pages there. Eventually, it becomes a web hosting service. And then you have to make a decision about that, but it's not going to happen. I don't think they're going to go that way. So eventually, if you're going to identify yourself, your brand, how you're going to stand out in the traditional way of your branding, your colors, your logo, your message, people are going to need a place to go to. It's not going to happen on Facebook or happen on Google Plus. It's that journey we're talking about, and it's the role of the APIs integrating it all. So the conversation can appear on your website, and content on your website compared to Facebook pages, and there's an integration. And there's no one system that's going to integrate the conversation with what you want to completely control. If it does, they'd all just be web hosting services, and you pick the little modules you want to use. Oh, I want to do chat. Oh, I think I want to do Twitter. I want to do this. And you can almost do that now with the APIs if you're clever. But I don't think Ford or any of the big companies is going to say Facebook is where it's going to be at. I mean, you had that little company you started out, right? Right? You just started out.
Oh, Cheetah Deals, yeah.
Yeah. Now, probably their website itself was not as key as the message and the conversation because they were starting from scratch and had nothing to go on.
Well, everything happens on the web. I mean, it's all about driving them to the website. Yeah. Right.
I think, remember, we're talking about such a very slim narrow of the information world on digital, which is commerce. There's a huge amount of stuff out there. I imagine the vast majority of the information of the world we want to look up and learn about doesn't have everything to do with buying something. And so our discussion is fairly narrow in a sort of philosophical sense of what we're talking about. Don't think that it's the end of the world that Facebook takes a particular strategy over the Plus, because there's a vast amount of information that's constantly pouring into the web.
And you mentioned content, and I think that's another 800-pound gorilla or 8,000-pound gorilla that's sitting behind all this. I mean, there's the famous Eric Schmidt quote from last year, which was, in the past 2 years, we've generated more data than mankind has from the beginning of time to 2003, I think it was, something like that. So, that's all of us, telling our clients and people, get your stuff everywhere in all of these different places. So the fact of the matter is that sitting behind a lot of this, to my mind certainly, is, that last slide that I put up there, having a clear, and that wasn't so clear necessarily, content strategy about how you're kind of getting out there and the purpose and the use for your content. I mean, I think in the social world, it's about connecting and really generating a discussion and generating a participation. I think in the search world, it's more about intent and finding information. So, I don't know if you have any thoughts about where you guys see the world of content going, in a sense.
Absolutely. I create content that people want to link to. There you go.
He's brilliant.
Mature search media. Yeah.
No, how big does that audience have to be?
What?
How big does that audience have to be?
How well
can one person in the world who really wants to learn that? It's so inexpensive to do. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, if you're going for quantity, then.
Yeah. No, it really depends.
No, you create content that people want to link to. If one person links to you, then you haven't written good content for your audience.
Right, content's crucial.
Well, and at the same time, too, when you're talking about social channels and being on, all of them at once, you can use them all to capture different portions of different audiences that, most people are not on every single one. Right. And so, it's still important to have your core content, your good content that you want people to link to, but it's important as well that you have influencers doing a lot of that linking, and that you know who those influencers are, you know who it is on Google+, who's relevant to you, and who's reaching out to the right audience, who has, thousands of followers that you're interested in. You get, that one link from them in that space.
Exactly.
And that is worth a ton more than just a link on somebody's blog.
Should you put the same link, same content on each of your social network sites? Like the same content that you put in your blog, should you put it on your Twitter account?
Well, you want to link to it. I mean, you want to push it out in as many ways as you can. On LinkedIn, you can create the integration for your blog posts. You want to tweet about it, Facebook it. I personally am not a big fan of these all-in-one, push a button and push it everywhere. For me, Facebook is a different conversation than Twitter is a different conversation than LinkedIn. And so I share same content on all those platforms, but I share it differently. I have different conversations about it. I personally am not a big fan of one push and shove it everywhere. And some network blogs is a good way to push your blog out to a lot of different locations and things like that. But yeah, like I was saying with the Jolt Bolt that we do every week, it takes us 20 hours to put it together, 15 minutes of content, yet it goes everywhere. And we get leads off LinkedIn or off SlideShare from it. We get a ton of views off YouTube for it. It's a blog on our website that we have comments on. So, whatever you can create and all the ways you can push it out there. But content is crucial. I mean, it's. I've had people say to me that they chose to work with us because they read my blog, they felt comfortable, they trusted me, that I said what they felt they needed to hear in purchasing or working with an SEO firm. So content is really critical.
I'll have a parting shot since I opened. And this discussion makes me think that in the future, I'm not sure when, we should have a social media breakfast. The topic should be government, fine art, healthcare, education, which makes you think that, and probably a different audience for companies, which probably also speaks to the whole issue of motivations for using it and how we get involved. And I'll suggest that to our board, anyone wants to join in. How to expand this discussion and how those things are relevant in our lives.
Sure, take a couple more here.
I just had a quick question. So, John Vitale used to say that there were two huge use cases for search, and one was discovery of new content, and the other was retrieval of stuff you've seen before, right? So, and one of the things that I seem to notice as social search results come in more and more is that while we writing a research paper or something, I remember some article that was really useful to me a year ago on Home or something, and I remember the headline, and I typed it in exactly. What I get used to be the article right at the top of the search results, but now I get a bunch of other articles that have been shared on social networks within the last week that happen to share a lot of the same keywords. And I'm kind of wondering what happens to the retrieval sort of function of search engines as we get more and more social search results?
I mean, I think if it's good content, it should always be retrievable. You know, if people are still linking to it, you know, now because it's good content that has endured, then you should be able to find it. You know, I think that's there's always a chance of things getting muddied a little bit by the constant, you know, need for Google to show what's fresh, you know, on the first page. But you know, if you've got a title of a good post that you know you're not the only person in the world who liked it at the time, that there had to be other people linking to it and there have to be other people looking for it now, it's got to still be available.
It does give that kind of bizarre feeling, but in many ways user experience is all about the kind of regression analysis of that. I mean, probably through the use of, you know, whatever problems that are discovered by Google with their interface are probably being worked on as we speak based upon that. So, you know, I mean, little slider bars that say, you know, date matters a lot, date doesn't matter at all, you know, that kind of thing. I'm sure that's down the road.
I'm sorry, earlier you mentioned Google Cheats.
Google Cheat Sheet.
What is, that's something?
Just look, yeah, Google Cheat Sheet, you know. More power to the search, basically.
I think you deserve to know.
One last question. And then
There's been a lot of conversation, blog posts about, is social still really two-way? In other words, you know, a lot of companies using it almost as a new broadcast method. How much time do you really think that a consumer is going to spend reading Facebook pages from Procter & Gamble brands? And is that two-way, or, you know, is it another way to distribute coupons?
Yeah, I mean, I think
yes to everything.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I'll throw the answer to that, and there's someone sitting over there who could answer that question pretty well also. And you know, I've had an opportunity to talk to, for example, chief scientist at Salesforce.com. Okay, and these people, you know, purchased Radian 6 and got deeply into the world of social media. They believe it. I mean, you know, and this is another gorilla that's sitting here. And yes, Kathy's absolutely right. We're into for some interesting few times, because really, this whole idea of the social enterprise, and I don't mean a socially aware enterprise, but an enterprise that really uses social media at its core, is something that is absolutely rising, getting very, and really looks very much to be the future of, you know, of where things are going. I mean, how many people use this as a phone, for God's sakes? You know?
Oh, it's a phone?
You know, hardly ever. I mean, it's really become about, you know, about social communication at a variety of different levels on a variety of different platforms, and so I think that again has an enormous amount of relevance. A lot of these millions and jillions of bytes of content that have been produced lately are that kind of social conversation that's starting to happen between brands and individuals. Now, does that affect search? Does it impact search? How does it do it? Enormous questions being worked out.
To piggyback off of that, one of the things that we tell our clients is social media is the conduit between you and the end user when they're not in front of the traditional marketing channels that you're trying to grab them at. And considering that they're using mobile more and more, and they're in line at Starbucks reading what's going on where their friends are, and they see your company come up, well, it's an impression. So when we start to educate our clients on utilizing the product, what that means, their eyes open up a little bit more and they start to rethink a strategy to get in front of them on more impressions.
They're doing that forever. You go to the ballpark.
Is it really social?
Yeah, I personally feel there's very few companies that have successfully and effectively used social. Many jump on for broadcast, and they're gonna hurt. I mean, Facebook has their whole edge rank system, and if you over and spam and all, you know, overpost and while social is not so new, I still find most of my clients don't get it, and we have to do a lot of internal training and really getting them. It really isn't an effective broadcast tool. People won't listen. They want you to engage, and so I think you have to be very careful about stepping into social. And I caution a lot of people away from social. If they don't have the staff or the time, don't go. You'll just end up hurting your brand, not building up and engaging your brand. So.
Well, we're super comment on social. What I do a lot of my clients that are sort of trying to get into social media is the first thing I'll do with them is throw home up is listen. What are people really saying out there about your brand, about your company, about the products you want to sell? And then we can craft a message that's really going to target back to what people are really looking for versus what the company thinks they're looking for. And I'll give you a quick example. I was working on a smoking cessation campaign for a major hospital. We went out there and we listened, and the end of the result was not adversarial about stopping the smoke, but we're smokers too. We understand your problem. And it was a whole engagement type approach to get them to really understand that we really want to help them take it to the next level, but we're also on the same page that they are, versus coming at it from really different.
Right,
Now,
exactly.
had we just gone out and done our adversarial type anti-smoking campaign, we won't fall flat on its face. We wound up getting some fantastic results by taking a different approach.
Right.
Yeah, and lost amongst among the noise. And I think people do, we all need to understand that social media really is an extension of customer service, or if you can look at it that way. And when you look at it that way, you're here to serve, and that's exactly what every single company that sells anything, ideas, you know, how much money they make, it doesn't even matter. What matters is that, you know, serving the needs of your constituents, whatever that is all important. And social media can help you do that, really help you do that.
Could you give an example of a company that's on Facebook that does engage well with their customers, like a best practice example? I'd like to go and look at something.
Can you give me your card, and I'll do a little digging, and I can send you some links. I will tell you, Cousin Corp is a perfect kind of conversation on engaging well, not engaging well. They hired us to write a social strategy for them. We wrote the strategy, built out their profiles, flew to Florida, spent 3 days training this young 20-something on how to Facebook and everything, and every month provided the reports, and she wasn't doing anything. She was broadcasting, and we couldn't get her to engage. So they ended up finding somebody new, and now their page is going through the roof. They've almost doubled their followers. They're having great, I'm actually engaging on their page because I want to, not because I feel compelled to. But they provide, Cousin Corp, if you go to like Joann's or AC Moore's, they provide jewelry making supplies. So they usually have about 50% of all the linear footage in most of those large crafting stores where they have the pendants and all the different things that you would use if you made jewelry. And so they engage with all the mommy bloggers and everything out there. And their stuff is really cool and it's fun. And now the way this new person is really engaging, there's lots of conversations, and he's tying it really well to Twitter. Now he's blogging for them, and it's like I actually am engaged now because I would love to take some time and make some of this jewelry with my daughter. And you know, and before I was sort of liking stuff because I felt it was my thing to do as their account representative. So now it's real engagement, not pretend engagement.
Another great example is what Best Buy's done with 12 Force. So Best Buy basically has given pretty much all their employees Twitter accounts, and they basically can respond to customer tweets directly. And I mean, that's a really great example of where this is going in terms of sort of this idea of the social business that's again really happening. So it's 9:45, and this has turned out exactly as it always has been, and exactly the way we really love it, which is all about a discussion about a lot of these things that none of us have answers for, but we all have really terrific and wonderful ideas. So I want to thank you all for coming. Please feel free to continue the conversation. And certainly if you have ideas, thoughts about where we want to take this, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me through the link with your invite, smbct.eventbrite.com. I'll be sending out a survey also, and would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to the panelists.
And thank you.